Welcome to the Cybersecurity Matters podcast. Your hosts today are me, Harry Baldwin, and Matt Rose, two members of the Nuco Cyber team, and we're delighted to be joined today by Ray Ruemmele, CRO of Evolve Security. Ray brings more than 20 years of leadership experience in enterprise technology and cybersecurity. He's a proven go-to-market executive and known for building high-performing teams that drive lasting revenue growth. Before joining Evolve Security, Ray led major growth initiatives as VP of Sales at Kudelski Security and held leadership roles at IBM, Lenovo, Juniper, and Okta. Today, he serves as Chief Revenue Officer at Evolve Security, a leader in proactive, offensive cybersecurity solutions. Welcome to the show, Ray. Great to have you here.
Great to be here, Harry. Thank you. Appreciate the venue here.
Really looking forward to the podcast. We always start with the same question with every episode, as everyone knows. Keen to hear from you. How did you first get into the cybersecurity industry?
Well, I've been in sales forever. I'm the the son of a salesman, so there was no other place for me to go than sell. And I was fortunate coming out of college to join a big company, IBM, right? All things, uh, all things IT. And in fact, when I joined IBM, I was selling typewriter ribbons and diskettes to give you some point in time, and 80-column punch
Uh,
cards, actually, to law firms across downtown Chicago. So that's how I started. But the beauty of IBM is every year there was a new job and a new challenge, right? So by the time I left, I was managing about $1.4 billion in portfolio around our PC business, and ended up, experiencing a lot of change through IBM during those years, quite obviously, and it really set the table for me professionally. And then, as it relates specifically to your question on cyber, we dabbled in that, right? And the world kind of advanced more toward cybersecurity, right? In the last 10, 15 years, it's really become more notable. When I was at Juniper, we introduced, some firewalls. We had acquired a firm called NetScreen, so that was kind of my first entry into there. And then clearly from an identity perspective in the IDaaS space with Okta early on, and then the last, 10 plus years between Kudelski and Evolve really just maniacally focused on cybersecurity.
And that's really interesting. I mean, we've got some questions definitely about your career that I'll hand over to Matt in a moment. But that just got me thinking. Do you think working at a big, well-known name like IBM really set you up for the successes that you had later in your career? Because I think quite a lot of the time people think, do I go for the big, well-known company or do I go for the scrappy startup? Do you think it matters, and how do you think it's helped you develop as a salesperson and leader?
Yeah, great question. I think it's always easier to go small to big than big to small. But there's a context you have working for a big company in terms of you've seen the processes, you see how things work at scale, and you can bring that and find the gaps, right, in these smaller companies as you move along. So for me, it was great. I mean, I went from, IBM, in the 80s to Juniper, we had probably 10,000 employees. And then over to Kudelski, we had 3,000, and we're around 50 here at Evolve. And I guess my next stop will be even smaller, but I like the impact. I think that within a big company, you have to be in the C-suite to really make an impact. You think about it, and IBM's like working, it's like being on a aircraft carrier, right? It takes a mile and a half to make a turn. Whereas working for a company like an Evolve, you can just turn around the corner and pivot very dramatically and become very agile for your clients, find out what's working, quickly adjust and implement. So that's been very fun for me. And the other piece too is I think I'm always looking for impact for our clients. And when you're working for a very specific solution, the impact and the efficacy of what you're doing to make our clients more secure is profound, and that's been very rewarding for me here in this space, in the offensive security space at Evolve. So it's been interesting, but I think that as I look to hire people, it's hard to get somebody coming into this role from a big company.
Yeah.
So I always look for folks with muscle memory, where they've had sustained growth and made a difference where they are in smaller companies, so they can be prepared for the speed in which we do things here.
Yeah.
Everybody here picks up a broom, and that's okay, right? And that I think goes to the culture. It's a very collaborative culture, and that to me is very important. And so I think that's the other thing you think about when you think about company size. Just as important is the culture. And big companies do a great job, top to bottom, maintaining that culture. Some of the mid-sized companies have a hard time with that. And I think in the smaller space, I think we can be a bit more prescriptive and direct on that in terms of our impact on culture.
Yeah. No, because there's a certain amount of chaos, right, when in startups, and you've got to be able to embrace that and, as you said, pick up a broom and get stuck in, right? I'm going to hand over to Matt, who's got some questions about your career, which I'm really looking forward to hearing the answers to.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. And yeah, I mean, it's clear from your CV, I mean, the array of experiences that you've had across different sized businesses and different technologies. But I'm keen to hear if there was a constant through that, whether something or a person that you would say has been one of the biggest influences on your career so far, right?
As we mentioned up top, I had the benefit of being at IBM, big culture, big company, great training. When I joined IBM, they send you to 3 weeks of training within your first 6 months. We're at the Scanacon in New Jersey, and we came back for the second wave in Atlanta. So all in that first 6 to 8 months, you're away from home for a couple of months just doing training. And then later in the career, they have things like, hey, they afforded me the opportunity to go to Harvard for a little bit of finishing school at IBM. And, just that was to me very impactful. At that point in my career at IBM, I was a new manager. And being in that setting, it's interesting. They gave us this book called, this is the 90s, right? They gave us this book called Five Forces by Michael Porter. And I'm reading that book on the plane, and I'm looking at the title. Oh my gosh, this is written in 1970 something. This can't be relevant. And guess what? As I dove into it, buyer power, substitution, all those five elements, very relevant in the internet boom of the late 90s. A lot of the companies they're referencing weren't around anymore, but those principles were there. So that stint at Harvard was very beneficial to me in terms of developing a more strategic level of thinking. I think the investment they made in me in that scenario, IBM always had a habit of just when you're ready to go somewhere else, you get handed an award or they give you training. I mean, they did a great job of intermittent reinforcement and growth for their people. So that was very influential. But the management team there was top notch. One thing, and I've told this story before, but I was doing my first review as a manager, as the first time I was a manager. And our VP, a gentleman by the name of Dave Boucher, I had gone through my presentation, and he says, "Hey, Ruemmele, how's Bowman doing?" I said, "Well, Bill, he's doing fine." "Well, how's the wife and the kids?" And I said, "Yeah, they're fine." Do you know his wife's name? How many kids he has? No, I'm sorry, Dave, I don't. You should know that. You should understand your people. Understand what motivates him. His wife is Annie, and he's got Chris, George, and Thomas, his three boys, and you should know that. And here he was, a very senior manager at IBM, and he knew that about somebody 2 levels down or 3 levels down in his organization. And that to me was like, okay. And next time I came in, I knew all of that and then some. And by the way, I found that beneficial because you have to understand what makes people tick to understand what motivates them, understand what's going on through their life events, because we all go through those, and you need to be tuned into those as a manager to get the most out of your people and make the best experience for your people working for you. So that's been really important, and that was for me. I think if I had gone down that path and not had that aha moment, I might not have been the manager I would have hoped to be right through my career. So that was a real difference maker for me, very impactful, and really set the tone for me in terms of the way I want to manage my people.
Oh, yeah, no, that's really interesting. And one area that stood out to me is obviously you have this learning experience at IBM with the opportunity to go to Harvard, and you mentioned it was at a point where there was the internet boom, and there's that saying that is history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes in a sense. And have you seen many of those kind of early stage learnings at IBM in the midst of the internet boom still applicable now when we're entering kind of this AI boom that no one seems to be able to escape?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this AI, and it's as close to the internet boom as anything I can think of. Although I think this is going to be more transformational. You know, we talk about this all the time, right? I mean, as you look to get your message out, how do you rise above the noise? Everybody's investing in Google Ads. Well, guess what? Google Ads, Google searches are down 25% this year. They'll be down 50% next year because everybody's using the agentic engines to do their searches. And I think, I think I heard that ChatGPT just now has a ability where you can transact at Walmart, right? So this is coming faster than we've ever seen. So to your question, Matt, yeah, we've seen this before. It looks the same, but a bit more dramatic and impactful. You think about that with the construct of, the robots and what's going on there. I mean, I saw something on the Instagram the other day about them replacing surgeons surgeons in the operating room, and they can take a raw egg and get the shell off, and the membrane's still there, right? I mean, these things have gotten so good. Everything's going, so exponentially fast. It's hard to figure out where to bet on. And that's one of the challenges we have, right? In terms of solutions within cyber, everybody's AI. You have to have AI. But what we try and do here is we have AI and human intelligence because there's some contextual elements and some things that AI just can't do yet. So that's the optimal blend, is looking at this and trying to figure out with the gold rush here on the technology with AI, how you harness that and make it an offering for your clients that's that is sustainable and and safe, because that's the other thing too. Something at scale, automated, if you have a bad input, it just comes out bad at scale. So you have to be very deliberate in what you're doing and how you're leveraging the technology. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that here. But that's, as I look in the marketplace, the valuations, I mean, that's the other, element of the .com era, right? All these crazy valuations. We're seeing a bit of that too. That's the whole piece though with these private equity firms. They don't have to be right every time. They need to be right once out of 10 and they can make a lot of money. So there's still a gold rush. There's still a lot of money funding that space. There's a lot of folks out there building teams and with new and improved offerings. And sometimes it's helpful, by the way, to be a new offering in this space because you don't have legacy elements you have to protect, right? So you can just go in and fully leverage whatever's new. And so that to me is an exciting piece of this in terms of what it will do transformationally to the industry, specifically to security, because we're getting better. But guess what? So are the threat actors. They're leveraging AI as well, right? And so that LLM element of security, I think, is probably going to be the biggest growth factor here in the next 3 to 5 years. And we're certainly part of it. But I think when I look back in terms of the history repeating itself, it's kind of the same thing, but I think this one's a little bit different. I think it's just going to be a little bit more transformational.
And it sounds like those lessons from the past could also be, position you in the best place possible to be able to approach that, though. Returning to kind of reflecting on your career to date, but also what's to come later. I mean, right now, is there any kind of key achievement that stands out to you as the most significant of your career so far?
It's interesting. We were talking prior to the podcast here, and I'm just coming off my sales kickoff, and I was riding in the elevator with one of our co-founders, and he said, "Ray, what kickoff is this for you?" And I had to do some math. It's my 45th kickoff. So I don't know if anybody wants to do that to themselves for 45 years straight, but I think in terms of pride, I think I'm lucky in that sense. I've kind of been like Tarzan, swinging from vine to vine, right? I've been gainfully employed and with great companies in challenging roles for the last 45 plus years. And during that time, or those 45 years doing this, I've spent half my time, probably maybe a little bit more, as an individual contributor, and then half my time in leadership. And I was about 15, 20 years ago, I was going back and forth. And in fact, even when I was at Kudelski, I'd come there, I'd come off a role at Okta where I was doing a lot of travel. We had young kids. I wanted to be home more. My wife was doing a global role. And so I wanted something more local, and ended up taking a sales job at Kudelski, just carrying a bag. And then eventually they tapped me to be a regional manager and then VP and whatever. But I always tried to keep my sales territory, because if I'm going to be a manager, I need to understand what I'm asking my reps to do. I want to understand if there's friction in our offerings. I want to understand how they're landing with clients. I want to see how the engagements go, and do so in a proximate manner, so that I can be informed. I think I can be a better manager knowing that. So I always kind of kept a couple of accounts just for mine through my career of sales, just to do that. And I think that's important, because we throw a lot at our teams. Hey, get your update your CRM. Here's your new sequence to call. Here's we throw a lot at them. But how do we do that in a meaningful way where we know what we're asking them to do? Is right. I mean, what I spend a lot of my one-on-one times with in my team is prioritizing those things, right? Because one of the biggest lessons I've learned is the biggest asset you have is time, and how you manage your time, how you spend your time as a sales rep, right? There's only, 8 hours a day. And that's the other piece too, by the way. My management philosophy is work is something you do 8 hours a day to finance the other 16. And you don't have to be a mathematician to know that 16 is twice, right? So it's twice as important. The other 16 are twice as important. So, if you're feeding your soul, feeding your energy in those other 16 hours, you can give it your full 8. But when I set these one-on-ones with folks, I'm looking to help them optimize their time. And, over these 45 years back and forth, carrying a bag or being a manager, we all have certain revenue achievements we're happy with, but those are quickly fleeting. Really what's sustainable to me is seeing the growth of my people over the career, seeing somebody that I, maybe hired, maybe saw some promise in, and then seeing their career growth to me, is just very satisfying. And that's the most satisfying thing. I had a gentleman, I was looking to, in fact, hire my backfill in the West region back when I was at Kudelski. And he called, and we had an interview with him, and he was really good. I really liked this kid. And, but he was an inside sales guy. And our SVP of HR said, well, he's not got, we want to hire to a profile, got hired to a profile. He hasn't really called on external customers and been in front of people before. Now, this interview, by the way, took place in late 2019. Smash cut 2020. I get a call from this inside seller that wasn't ready for us yet. And guess what? Everybody was an inside seller after March of 2020. And I went back to the SV. He followed up, right? He followed up. He said, "Hey, are you still looking for somebody?" And yes, we were. We brought him on, and he changed the culture, because he knew how to navigate sales within that, this new environment we're all facing. Many of my AEs, their superpower was going to lunch or happy hours or golf course with their clients. They didn't understand how to cultivate relationships in a video way, right? You can still do that, but you have to have a different approach, right? And this whole LinkedIn and that whole element of things back, in 2020 was relatively not where it is today. And so that was interesting. And then seeing this gentleman now, he's doing great in other roles since, but his persistence and just the fact that he came in and made such a cultural impact on us as an inside seller. That's the other thing as I look at reps too, is, if their sales modality hasn't changed since COVID, I mean, there's something wrong, right? I mean, and by the way, the other now thing, how you leveraging AI. we spend a lot of time looking at chat GPT prompts, trying to coalesce around the right notes we can send to folks, to be very bespoke in our communication. But how are you leveraging AI? How has your sales modality changed since COVID? If they don't have good answers to those questions, that's a tell for me. That's a red flag, right? There could be mitigating factors, but by and large, that's a big one. So I think, contextually watching the environment change has been interesting, and folks adapt to that. Has also been kind of fun to watch. I mean, and the nice thing about these days, if something doesn't work, you can just change it very quickly, in any tactic, and so that's been very beneficial. But I think for me, it's just the people, watching them grow and seeing their impact on clients.
It's really interesting, Ray, and I love the answers and the examples that you've given to some of those. Did you always want to become a manager when you were younger? Did you have like a background in leading sports teams or anything like that, or was it just something that you picked up through, what you're passionate about?
My sports was all individual, really. It was boxing, right? So I didn't really have some of the other stuff, but no, it really comes from, um, you know, I, I actually went through my first, 15 some 15 plus years of my career not being a manager and never wanting to. And then one of my managers said, "Hey, you should really think about doing this." And I was, pretty hesitant, but once I started doing it, um, I liked the venue. I liked the ability to scale my impact. And so that was refreshing and different. And that's the other piece too. You go through your career, you're warrior, statesman, whatever, right? So you kind of move through those phases. And when you think you have something you can offer and make the whole organization better, that's kind of exciting for me. So that was a big motivation. Certainly the money's better as an individual contributor if you're doing well over your career and you sleep better at night. There's some trade-offs, but I think for me the ability to make a broader impact, and again, as mentioned before, see people progress. That to me was the outweighed the cons there. So it became a very positive thing for me.
Yeah, it's inspirational to hear, and I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this podcast who consider going into management will be really, you know, really pleased and excited to hear you talk about it in that way. You've spoken a little bit about, and kind of moving on to talent and people, right? You've touched a little bit on what makes a good salesperson, and that isn't exactly my question, but when you're building a sales team, and I imagine that it kind of is different in different contexts within what market you're targeting and the size of the business and the product. But generally speaking, are there kind of set traits that you look for, both from a soft and hard skill perspective, and what's most important to you?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, and mileage may vary in terms of what we're looking to fill. Um, I would tell you there's an old adage: you hire to a profile, and that's okay. But there's some intangibles sometimes, right? If somebody's demonstrated an ability to learn and grow, I might take a gamble on them. The gentleman, the inside sales guy, right, that I talked about, right? But I saw something there, and then the timing was right, and the situation was right, where we were able to create an opportunity for him. But for me, if they've got intellectual curiosity, they have to be curious, and they have to be a good communicator. Uh, it's amazing to me when, and I know things are different, these days, everything's moving at the speed of light, but I'll have an interview with somebody and they don't follow up with "Hey, great to meet you, thank you," or "Connect me on LinkedIn." I mean, these are just, and yet they'll tell me in the interview how great they are at building relationships. I'm like, really? I mean, I've got to see some proof through the process. And, through my career, I trust my instinct, but I also trust the instinct of my peers. So I'm not making these decisions in a silo. I want other kids in the pool with me helping make that decision, because everybody's got a different point of view and they'll take a different approach in terms of the interview, right? So maybe we'll drill down on, hey, what happened at this last job, and where are their skill sets from a technical match. Someone else may drill down on culture, right? So we try and balance it that way, not running folks through a gauntlet, but getting different inputs mitigate risk. The worst thing you can have is a false start, and you do everything you can to avoid those. So for me, it's a balance point, but in between, if they demonstrated growth in roles, um, and somebody that's got 5 jobs in 7 years, probably not going to be a good fit, right? Unless they have a very good reason. But for the most part, I need to see some consistency, some some impact, and they've got to be enthused about the job, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sales is a tough job. It can't be yes, it needs to be hell yes, right? I mean, they need to be all in, and you know, I go through the interview process sometimes, and throughout my career, I've been in places and situations and times where I'm more enthused about a company than maybe another time, and I'll try and talk people out of it, and then they'll come back to me and go, "Oh, you were so candid about how things are over there. I really want to work for you." I'm like, "I was trying to scare you off, you know." But so you got to be careful on that front. But I do try and present a realistic picture of what somebody's walking into, because
Yeah.
that's the worst thing you can do is say, "Oh, it's all great over here. Everything we have is perfect, and our tools are fantastic, and there's no friction in any of our processes." And they get there, they find out it's something less so. So I
Yeah.
want to be very upfront with folks. They know what they're getting into, so that they come here and they're ready to go. And again, it's a hell yes. They understand the lay of the land, and it's a hell yes. They're ready to go, and they've got the background to succeed. They've got either the technical chops, the sales chops, or some combination thereof. It's going to, I think, make for good representation. You always think about somebody as a sales guy. That's the first touch, right? That's the moment of truth you have with clients, right? Is that first touch. So within that, your sales rep has to be a brand ambassador. Is this somebody I want representing me? And I always look at folks too as what they can do for us later on. I mean, there's the role after the role. Are these folks that can grow? Are these folks that could be, if not, my successor? Can they be a leader on the sales floor? Can they help coach up their peers? So you look for those elements of things that I think make for, an impactful salesperson, and just try and mitigate the risk, and at the same time be very diligent in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've spoken a little bit about high performers in there as well. I mean, previously as well about the success that can come with doing an individual contributor role right. Um, all the businesses we talk to, right, are always doing their best to keep their high performers, first of all, staying there, but also motivated and growing to keep on performing. What do you put in place to keep, you know, top salespeople motivated, and how do you generally approach that?
Well, I think making sure they've got the tools to be successful, right? So, that's one thing. If you look at coming into any organization, what tools they have, what kind of leads are they getting? How can we help them generate leads? Is the collateral there? Is are the internal motion set up to be successful for sales? Is there good interlock between sales and our customer success? Those kind of elements you try to make sure you've got the right foundation for them to thrive. And as a manager, one thing you have to do is knock down those things that are inefficient for your team. You have to be a real advocate for the sellers, making sure that they've got a seat at the table, right? With any decisions we make at a C-suite level, is there a sales lens on this? And that's something as CRO you have to think about, right? And just making sure that folks can scale. The other piece too, I think, is just helping them with their skills, right? So whether that's MedPick or not, I mean, back to we talked about time, and one of the most beneficial things to me is who you're not calling on, right? So it's not always be selling; it's always be qualifying. So are you spending the right time on the right deals? Are you approaching your clients, your book of business in a way, I should say, that can impact your quota, impact your earnings, right? So I think of it as the lion analogy. A lion can eat field mice all day long, right? But eventually they're going to starve to death because the energy taken to eat these mice is a detriment in terms of their calorie intake. Whereas a kill an antelope, they can live pretty well, right? So we try and be antelope hunters here, right? Because that's just more efficient. The little pots and pans are interesting, but I'll tell you, transactionally getting $15,000 for a pen test at a small company is harder sometimes than getting a $300,000 pen test at a bigger company. And so we need to be efficient in terms of where we're targeting to be successful. And that's the other thing. I think I try and put a lens on that for my team. Anywhere I've gone is like, what's the most efficient way? You need to be very efficient. And so that's efficiency, I guess, would be the overreaching word there I'd give you there, Matt. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you didn't just say compensation or pay them more when I asked you how to keep them for longer.
that comes with being efficient, right? That's an
Yeah,
outcome of that, right? What are the outcomes? The outcome is
yeah,
money. And then retention, if they're doing these things, they've got the right tools, they're having fun, right? I mean, this should be something you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, and what can we do to make it fun? Is the culture right? Are the tools right? What's the teaming look like on a sales call? And are we setting those folks up to be successful? They have the right SMEs. Is there a good working relationship between those two folks as they go through a call? And by the way, are they doing the right things? Do we have there's a footprint, right? Do you have every interaction with a client is a moment of truth. So if you had a pre-call, right, you're targeting the right client, you got the meeting, or you have an internal pre-call. Well, you better have a pre-call for every call you're talking to a client, right? Are you you've got the right agenda that the client understands what they're there to talk about. You don't want to get somebody on the phone, they don't know, some mystery as to why they're talking to you. They should be very clear on why we're talking, right? And then we need to understand the business problem we're trying to fix for the client. And then, we got to do the little things, the thank you note afterwards. All those things go to just the professional nature of the engagement with a client that make our reps more efficient, and I think more successful. And so we try and teach that. And that's, MedPick and other things, I think, but that ongoing growth would make folks stickier. Then if they're doing the right thing, selling multi-year, these are like annuities, right? Because you get paid in the out years. So there's a bit of a hold we have if we're doing our sales right, because we're selling multi-year engagements. So they've got out years 2 and 3 they're getting paid on. So they're building up a book of business. That gets to be kind of exciting when they start
yeah,
looking at the impact of that. And so the ability for folks wanting to work with us or other places I've been for multiple years is important, right? So it's you've got to deliver, you've got to be good as the solution, and the customer has to be happy. And if that's the case, then you're going to succeed because you're going to see those out year deals. You'll get references. That's the other thing too. Is, those powerful thing. These days with all the noise, we talked earlier about Google versus ChatGPT or the agentic engines, but a big thing is referrals, right? I needed a plumber. Well, I asked some of the neighbors who they used, right? I went through referrals. That's the same thing our CISOs do. They try and cut through the noise. So, the folks you work with, are they going to give you a referral?
yeah,
And we've been very fortunate. There's platforms out there like G2 and others where we have very high reviews, but having clients willing to refer you is important. And I think for our reps, they need to say, hey, listen, if we do a bang up job for you, will you give me a reference? And 99% of the time, the answer is yes. But you have
yeah.
that conversation up front and you've set the expectation, we're going to do a bang up job for you. And so and we do, and those come. So that's the other thing I think that helps retain the reps, is just knowing that the clients they're working with, the outcomes we're providing, create referrals, right, which helps them as they are going to try and create some commissions for themselves.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And there's a lot of parallels with our space, like how you mentioned transparency of what the candidate or what the person's getting into a few minutes ago. So yeah, no, it's great to hear your input on all those things. I've got to ask you some questions about Evolve, otherwise we're going to run out of time. You shared with me last
Favorite
time we
subject these days.
yeah, let's do it. This is my favorite subject. But one thing that was really interesting, genuinely, was the role that you guys play in training
Mhm.
security professionals and people. Why'd you get into it? and why has it remained core to the business moving forward?
Yeah, so Evolve was founded, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, and we were
Congrats.
founded as Evolve Security Academy. So it was doing OWASP training and helping, folks get into the cyber community. And, back then the classes were all in person, 10 years ago. And they had a very successful business. And the beauty of that was we get these security folks out, and all of a sudden they're working in our offensive SOC, right? We know the people, and it's a great hiring pool. And by the way, these folks go out in the wild, and there's those CISOs out there that went through the Evolve Academy now 10 years out, right? If you think about it. So some very successful folks, in fact, has got their start. And as we approach teams now, like we'll be talking to somebody and they're a InfoSec director, and that's one of the things that sets us apart is we do have this academy, right? So folks, they want to train their team, but they don't have budget. Well, we can work on a solution for them with the offensive security solution. We'll throw in some training credits and help train your team up. So, that's it's a differentiator for us. But I mean, I think the other thing, altruistically, I think just the benefit of getting people their start in cyber and growing the skill set out there. That's the biggest mismatch we have is the population of bad guys is growing faster than the folks defending, right? So what can we do to help? So for us, it's core to our mission, and we've really enjoyed the relationship with the folks in the academy and over the years, and we've seen great things coming out of that. So it's foundational to what we do.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing to do. I mean, it's hard enough sometimes getting into cybersecurity, right? It can feel like a daunting topic and sort of ever expanding. So I think it's a really nice thing to help people get into it. Couple things about Evolve, right? I mean, what originally attracted you to the business when you were considering joining? Was it the tech? Was it the people? Was it honestly absolutely everything? Opportunity to scale. I'm intrigued to hear.
All the above, right? I mean, I was originally contacted by Mark Carney. He's our CEO. I had the pleasure of working with Mark in the previous role about 9 years prior. So that was a draw. The fact that and they're a Chicago-based company. I live in LA, but I cut my teeth in Chicago. And so it was almost like fitting that I would, take a job, late career back in Chicago where it all started. So for me, that was kind of fun. And I, as mentioned, grew up in Chicago, so I understand the culture and the people. And then I met the two of the co-founders for a long day of discussions. Went pretty quick, but I mean, we were 6 hours of discussions. And as it happened, one of the co-founders went to the same high school I did in Central Illinois, believe it or not. He was a few decades behind me, but he went to the same high school. And the other gentleman, Paul, was also from Central Illinois. So there was a cultural alignment and almost a commonality there, knowing that in terms of knowing what, the temperament of the folks and the fact that they, Midwest has a certain set of values. And that was attractive to me. I was also attracted to the fact that they were just maniacally focused on offensive security. I think part of the challenge for folks in cyber, they tend to do everything. They try and do everything. And we are very much staying in our lane. And we do so with some very forward thinking. We've got a patent around continuous pen testing methodology, right? We've been at this for, 10 years. And, we talk about AI. Well, we use AI, but we also blend AI automation with the human experience, right, through our OSOC and provide, I think, frankly, very good cyber resiliency for our clients with that equation. So that was a big thing. Then the other piece was just the ability to make an impact and take what I've learned in the places I've been and apply those in a company position for hypergrowth. And we are here. And so that's been fun. And so for me, I think just the ability to work with the people I like, with the right people, the right mission, and the right offering. I mean, all the back, you're always trying to figure out, are these guys for real, right? What's going on? Well, 4.9 out of 5 on G2. I mean, you look at the customer testimonials, they're all off the charts. So I thought, okay, well, this is legit, right? And seeing the logos and so it's been fun. I mean, this has probably been I'll be a year next month, and this has been the funnest year of my career, I would say. So that's good. It keeps me in the saddle here. So it's been great.
Awesome. I mean, I'm interested to also know, like, when you first started, because you mentioned that you guys are small and growing, and when you're thinking about scaling, is there a thing that you look to first? Is it about processes? Is it about people? Is it about, you out in the field, going out and going back to individual contributor mode? Like, where does it start for you when you started a business like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, my best friend at the company was our operations person, right? I need to understand the data, data, not dogma, right? So you need to understand what's going on. Where are we today? You got to know where you are to figure out where you want to go. So try and get a level set. So looking at, you know, renewals, looking at, upsells, looking at new business, multi-years, looking at all those things, looking at the tool stack, seeing if it's set up to scale, right? And I came into, I think, a pretty good tool stack here. Uh, we had some leaks in the bucket in terms of some of the implementations. So having seen that before, if you've seen this movie before, you kind of know how it ends, so you can make those adjustments. And it's really been dials, not levers, just dials here, because the foundation was set up very well. And so that's been very rewarding to see that. And then the team, we've had the opportunity to bring some new blood in. I was talking to the folks at kickoff again in Chicago. It's football season. Tragically, the Bears did not advance, but I was talking about the 1984 Bears. Ironically, none of my team was probably alive back then, but I was talking about the 1984 Bears who got closed out of the playoffs by the San Francisco 49ers, 23-0. Then they came back the next year. They were the 85 Bears, which everybody still talks about the Chicago Bears from 1985. And looking at the difference in the team from 1984 to 1985, it was a rookie by the name of William the Fridge Perry, right? So that new talent really, coalesced the team. It took it to the next level. I look at the sales team I was talking to in Chicago. I mean, we've got, of my 6 sellers, we got 3 of them are new. This is new talent. And the other beauty is we're watching these folks progress their careers from SDR into AEs, and making sure that they've got the credentials and the experience to succeed when they jump into the AEC, not putting somebody in there too soon. But that energy and that vigor that new talent brings to an organization, I think, is exciting. So that's one of the things I think has been great. And so overall, I would tell you that coming in, just a slight recalibration of the team, looking at the tooling, making sure the processes are shored up, and then trying new things, right? So we're looking we're moving upstream, right? Because our offering gets better and better. And 7 years ago, we were more of an SMB play, and now we're talking to Fortune 1000 accounts, right? So are we set up to succeed to penetrate those accounts? What's the so we're being very specific, talking to clients, meeting them where they are. So if we're talking about the insurance industry, if we're talking to an insurance company, right? So little things like that. They're just little tweaks that I think have upped our game and have set us up for success here. But most importantly, I think it's the maturity of the offerings,
Yeah.
and the people we have on the delivery side really make a difference for us too. I mean, I'm on the sales side, and that's all well and good, but if you don't have the team on customer success and delivery, I don't care how good a seller you are, right? It won't matter. So understanding the whole team, and just assessing that, I think, and leveraging the collective genius we have here has been very beneficial.
Yeah, awesome. No, really insightful. It's great to hear, what your focus has been a little bit in your first year. Also partnerships play a really big part in that as well, right? I saw that you guys recently partnered with Zafran. Tell us about that partnership and what makes that a good fit.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about people, and I happen to know the CRO of Safran. I saw Tom through his early days in his career at Okta, and I thought, wow, this guy's going somewhere. So you kind of keep tabs on certain people, right? And he became CRO for Safran. I looked at Safran, thought about what we do, and reached out to Tom. We had a couple of discussions, and now we've got a go-to-market offering together. Basically, it's validation as a service, right? So Safran's got this C10 platform we're big advocates of CTEM, and where we come in, we can validate these exposures, right? So it's our continuous pen testing. So it's it's 1 + 1 is 3 in this case, right? So and the team's been great to work with, and we've got a partner ecosystem, by the way. I mean, we think leveraging partners is great. So we've got VARs out there across the U.S. that we work with as well, cyber VARs. We've got the alliance with Zafron, but these are areas where looking to scale, right? So that's one thing we've been focused on here in the last year and a half since Mark came on, is really developing a partner ecosystem. This service ports very well into that. And you think about offensive security, it's kind of the tip of the spear, right, from cyber. So from a cyber VAR going in and doing a pen test, understanding the environment, then whether there's things they can sell them to help shore up those weaknesses, it's logical. So it always made sense to have a partner ecosystem, and our AEs get compensated the same whether it goes through a partner or not. And so we eliminate that friction. But again, we want to meet the clients where they are. Some folks want to buy through the partner. I mean, you think about the paper process in MedPIC, and working through a partner ecosystem where they've already got paper with clients, that's a fast path to success for us.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Super interesting. Excited to see where you guys go together. I've got some more questions, but truth be told, we're running out of time. So we're gonna have to get onto our last one. And I've loved all your answers, by the way. It's super thought provoking. This is really an interesting one because I think you've had a lot of experience in leadership and business for quite some time, right? So one thing I wanted to ask, one piece of advice, it can be more than one, it's okay. What piece of advice would you give to someone entering the cybersecurity industry specifically, or into a sales role, like
Yeah,
however
no,
you want to look
great
at it?
question. I'll default back to the University of Illinois. The thematically our alma mater was learning and labor, right? Learning and labor, and you got to work and learn. And I think that's the most important thing for somebody. Be willing to do the work. Uh, have an eye on self improvement every day. Little things matter. You got to get better every day at what you're doing. You got to sharpen your saw. As a manager, I try and make sure that I'm helping them do that, but they've got to own that themselves ultimately, right? In terms of getting better. And they need to be patient. I mean, patience is a virtue, really. I mean, people want things to happen for them sometimes. Oh, I need to be a rep. I need this. Well, then you get there, and if you're not ready, it doesn't go so well, right? So you want to make sure that there's a level of patience there. So I think, you know, and then you got to be in it for the right reasons. I mean, yeah, money's good in sales. Cyber is a great way, great industry. Cyber, AI, big data, right? These are all the three horsemen here now in terms of where you'd go. But for me, I think the unique thing about the opportunity in cyber is the ability to really make an impact on your clients. And so it's material, right? So if that excites you, making clients more secure, then cyber is probably a great place for you. If you are willing to learn and grow, because things change. I mean, this environment and the threat landscape changes every day, right? So if you're willing to grow and learn, I think you're in a good place in cyber.
Yeah, brilliant advice. And yeah, curiosity, learning, hard work, listening, all those kind of things, I think is it's a big part of why you've been successful too. So thank you so much for joining us, Ray. Great to hear your thoughts and insights. Pleasure having you on.
Well, thank you both. Looking forward to catching up later. Take care.